Hi, I'm Rich Gallagher. Welcome to the Sweetwater Minute. Today we are joined by Izzy Maxwell, and you're a product manager at iZotope.
Indeed.
Thanks for coming in.
Nice to be here, Mitch.
Great to have you here. You were doing a meeting with the sales engineers this morning.
Yep, bright and early.
Talking about Ozone 7, which we're really, really excited about. But tell us, what does a product manager do at iZotope? What's your gig there?
Sure. Product manager does a lot of different things. I'm basically responsible for the health of our existing products and guiding the development of our new products.
Okay.
So I do a lot of talking to customers, both amateurs and professionals, to find out what their needs are, how our products could better serve them, and then taking that information back to headquarters and guiding our development team, working with marketing, working with sales, really just making sure we're making the right product for the right people at the right time.
Right, awesome. Lots of responsibility.
It's a roller coaster ride.
Keeps you busy, yeah. But you do more than just Ozone. You do all the music products, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're not a huge studio. We really can only focus on a couple things at a time. So the main focus of this year was making a new version of Ozone. But
right.
yeah, we introduced the music production bundle, which has Ozone Alloy for mixing, Nectar Production Suite for vocal processing, and Trash for distortion and effects.
Right. Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff.
Thanks.
And you have quite a background in music. You were saying this morning that you've done some pretty impressive things.
Well, I mean, I've been a musician my whole life, but probably more notably, I worked for many years in the game industry, developing Guitar Hero and Rock Band as well.
Wow, impressive. And how many songs did you mix for Rock Band?
Oh, thousands, easily. We were just churning out. Every week we pumped out sometimes as many as a dozen songs.
Wow. Wow, that's incredible. And you're bringing all that background to working with the products, which is just awesome that you're bringing that real world perspective.
Absolutely.
To what's happening here with Ozone and the other products. So the big news is Ozone 7, which is just being announced, and we're really excited about it. So there are some pretty big changes here in Ozone 7. Give us a brief discussion of what Ozone is and what's changed.
Sure. Well, Ozone is a suite of mastering plugins. It's designed to put mastering within reach of both, aspiring engineers and professional engineers. We geared it to give you the highest sound quality possible. So, Ozone is not a channel strip. If you try to put it on every track in your session, you might have some problems. Certainly, give it a try though if you want. We opted for the highest sound quality for all of our processors, which means some of them are pretty heavy, but this is designed for mastering, and sound quality is the most important in mastering.
Right.
In the last version of Ozone, we introduced the standalone application, which means if you want to do your mixing in your DAW, whether you use Pro Tools or Ableton or Logic or whatever, bounce out your mix, and then you can use the standalone to do just your mastering wherever you are.
Right, which really does help you focus. I think if you're really going to dial in on the master and that's what you're going to work on, I think that's a good way to do it, is have that standalone app. So I think that was an awesome change.
Yeah, I find it really helpful when I'm a Pro Tools guy, and when I'm in Pro Tools, I'm thinking about the mix. I'm thinking about the relative volumes of each instrument. I'm not quite ready to take that step back and think about, is the sonic quality of this entire mix fully balanced? How loud is it? How hard am I hitting the limiter?
Right.
So, give myself a day off, refresh my ears, come back, use the standalone, really hit the mix hard that way.
Right. So that was in Ozone 6. And now what have you brought to Ozone 7?
So in Ozone 7, probably the biggest thing we brought was a whole lot of new processing power. We introduced an entire sort of sub-brand, the Vintage brand, within Ozone. You'll see we gave all of the Vintage modules a new sort of vintage-esque UI. We looked at a bunch of old gear. We were really inspired by sort of the clean gray of the LA2A.
Right.
So we tried to do something along those lines, and introduced four brand new modules, all themed around giving your mixes a little vintage warmth, a little analog color.
Okay. So give us a tour of what are those 4 modules?
Oh, certainly. So I had the Vintage limiter up right here. This works just like our maximizer, and in fact it is a maximizing limiter. As you bring the threshold down, it adds makeup gain.
Okay.
You can use this as a final stage limiter. It gives a slower, more natural, more musical release time than the IRC limiter, which is a very scientific and precise limiter. This is more designed to give you that sort of natural compression of a hardware limiter.
Okay.
We also added the Vintage EQ, which is our Pultec inspired EQ, but with a brand new modern interface.
Right.
So if you're familiar with the Pultec, you can use this right away. If you're not familiar with the Pultec, this could actually maybe help teach you a little about how Pultec works, as we included a little filter curve on the UI, so you can see as you make your changes how that's affecting the filter curve of your music.
Nice. That is one of the really nice things about Ozone is the amount of visual feedback you get to what you're actually doing to your mix.
We really, as much as I don't want to encourage people to mix with their eyes,
Right.
having that little visual cue to what's going on, I think helps focus your ears. It lets you know what to listen for.
Right, right.
So the two other Vintage modules are the Vintage compressor, which was inspired by a great many different analog compressors, the API 2500, the LA2A, as I mentioned, and the 1176.
Right.
We kind of tried to design it to be a best of all Vintage compressors. So you can get that analog sound, but you can also do some new creative things with it as well.
Right, right. One of the things you were talking about with this was the detector and how you guys have worked with that.
Yeah, so one of the great things about some of these Vintage compressors is that they actually have a nonlinear frequency response. They're more sensitive to certain frequencies than other. One really popular method of detection filtering is to roll off the low frequencies so that when you have those, say, a big kick drum hit, it's not pushing down the entire mix.
Right.
So we added that on the top here. And made it fully editable. So you can push your high-pass filter way up if you want. If there's a certain frequency you want to exaggerate, we have a mid-peak filter as well as a high-shelf filter. So you can sort of get that API, I think they called it the thrust setting.
Right, in the hardware box, right?
Yeah, that gives you that sort of brighter, more present compression.
Right, right. And you can also solo the detector, can you not? So that
Yes.
you can hear what's happening there.
Yep, again, at Isotope, we try to focus on really giving you the highest level of control over your mix. So you can solo the detection filter and listen, oh, am I still getting a little bit of kick in there? What's that frequency I really want to center in on?
Right, right. Very helpful.
Yeah, just remember to unsolo it
Unsolo
before
it.
you bounce your mix.
Right.
And then the last of the Vintage processors is the Vintage tape, which we ran a bunch of tests on a Studer A810, which is a current modern mastering tape machine, and tried to really extract the essence of tape.
Right.
Get all of the things that people love about tape, that rich analog vibe that it has. But we also wanted to give users additional range of controls that would be very difficult to do with an actual physical tape machine. You'd have to recalibrate the machine every time. For example, if you wanted to change the bias controls.
Right.
We have a wide range on the bias so that you can pretty severely over-bias and get a very warm, crunchy, retro sound.
Right.
Or if you want to use it on a more modern mix, I actually just mastered a project I was working on, and I slightly underbiased, which gives it still that tape warmth, but a little more modern, a little more aggressive. The highs are distorted slightly differently. So you really have a wide range of sonic options to choose from.
Right, right. Yeah, you can impart that flavor. I was listening to some of the demos that you were doing. You can really impart that flavor without it seeming hyped or overdone, which some tape emulators maybe do too much.
Yeah, we really wanted to keep this emulation. I know I said we only wanted to capture the best aspects of tapes, but we also wanted to make it true to what a tape machine actually does. There's a lot of people have, I think, perceptions of what tape does. Maybe they've never even used a real tape deck. Tape doesn't do something drastic. It's actually very subtle. So we wanted at its default settings to actually just sound like what happens when you print audio to tape.
Right. Right.
Of course, if you want that really hyped low end, we gave you a low and high emphasis control. So you can really get that rich, warm body if you pump up the low emphasis.
So you have the option.
Yeah, exactly.
Very nice.
So those are the 4 vintage modules.
Okay.
The other real exciting thing in Ozone 7 is we have a brand new IRC limiting algorithm, which we're calling IRC4, the next in the chain of IRC limiting modes. IRC4 uses a new technology we've developed that we're calling spectral shaping.
Okay.
As your mix is coming into the limiter, it's analyzing all the different frequencies and trying to identify which frequencies are contributing most significantly to the overall program level of your audio and gently attenuating just those frequencies. So let's say you have a really loud kick drum. Instead of that pushing the entire mix down, which could cause a little bit of distortion, or certainly that pumping sound when you have the kick come in and you can hear the vocals duck down a little bit, the spectral shaping gently attenuates just those low frequencies so that you're hitting the limiter a lot more evenly.
Okay.
The result is a smoother sound, and also means you're not hitting the limiter so hard.
Right.
So either you get a more natural sounding mix, or you have a little bit more headroom to play with if you're really crusading in the volume wars and you want to get the loudest mix possible.
Right, right. Yeah, again, in listening to your demos, I was surprised. I mean, it really is transparent because you don't get the artifacts, you don't get the pumping.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of people ask me if IRC4 is like multiband limiting, or they ask me if it is multiband limiting. It is not multiband limiting. It is similar to multiband limiting, but yeah, in my experience, it's far more transparent because you're not actually separating your mix into discrete frequencies.
Right.
It uses this advanced technology to just slightly attenuate the frequencies that are really going to be hitting the limiter.
Right, and because it's very intelligent, the user interface is also much easier than using a multiband limiter where you have to set the crossover points and all the things that you have to do there.
Certainly, we stuck to the traditional IRC maximizer interface. You really just have your threshold control and your ceiling to set, at what point the limiter engages and what your ceiling is to leave you room so there's no clipping. And then a character control to set the overall speed of the limiting.
Right, right, and very easy. Very easy.
Very easy, very easy. I guess the last feature I'd like to tell you about is the codec preview. Now this is only in Ozone 7 Advanced,
Okay.
but it's a really cool feature, especially if you're sending your mix out to iTunes or Amazon or streaming, when you know it's going to be converted to a lossy codec format.
Sure.
So right within Ozone, and this is in the standalone as well as the plugin, so even if you're in Pro Tools or Ableton or whatever, you can still use the codec preview
Okay.
to hear what your mix will sound like as an AAC or an MP3 at a variety of different bit rates. We also added a solo codec artifacts button, which allows you to hear just the difference between the original unencoded signal and the encoded MP3 or AAC. So you'll hear both what is being taken out of the mix and any distortion that is introduced by the codec.
I was blown away by that. When you were showing the soloing and what you were losing, really instructive. I thought to hear that. I think that's an amazing feature to have included here.
Absolutely, yeah. And as I mentioned before, it really helps train your ear of what to listen to. I've gotten a lot better at identifying MP3 and AAC compression just from using the solo artifacts. Solo codec artifacts.
Right, right.
Thank you.
I would bet that it also changes the way that you mix because you can anticipate we're going to lose some high end here and this is going to get a little bit different and you can kind of compensate for that.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll find especially at low bit rates, you do lose a lot of high end presence. So if you know that you're going to end up as a low bit rate MP3, maybe you use one of our EQs, perhaps the vintage EQ,
Perhaps so,
to do a nice gentle high shelf boost at the top.
Right, right. Yeah, and compensate for that. I think that really is a tremendous feature to have added here.
Certainly.
Very exciting. So you mentioned Ozone and then you mentioned Ozone Advanced. What's the difference between those two?
There's certainly a price difference. Ozone Standard is a lot cheaper than Advanced. However, we did recently just drastically reduce the price of Advanced. In Advanced, you get all 4 of the vintage modules and the codec preview.
Okay.
In Standard, you get the vintage limiter and our new export options so that you can export directly from the standalone to MP3 or AAC. The other big news in the standard version of Ozone 7 is that you get the dynamic EQ, which used to be exclusively in Ozone 6 Advanced.
Great.
One other significant difference is that when you buy the advanced version, you get individual component versions of all of the modules. So that's 10 different modules in Ozone that you get as individual plugins.
So then you could load those into Pro Tools or Ableton or Studio One or whatever.
However you want. That's certainly great. If you have a new computer that can handle a little extra CPU, try using some of these on your mix buses. The vintage tape certainly sounds great on a drum bus. I use that in my mixes a lot. And I actually just used the dynamic EQ on a vocal bus to help brighten the vocals, but dynamically, so that it was actually only brightening them when there wasn't already a lot of high frequency information. So it helped elevate my vocals above the mix without creating harsh sibilance.
Right, very nice, very nice.
Absolutely.
Izzy, we're so excited about this. I think Ozone 7 is just going to rock. I mean, I've been using Ozone since the very first version. I don't remember when it came out, but I just love working in the program. I think the user interface is so easy to get around on. The improvements you guys have made there and all these new modules, really a tremendous upgrade for Ozone 7. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And thanks for coming in and giving us a tour. Really fun stuff.
Oh, absolutely. I love it here. I can't wait to come back.
Thank you very much. Come back soon.
I will.
Great.
Thank you, Mitch.
Good to see you.
You too.
I'm Mitch Gallagher. Thanks for joining me for the Sweetwater Minute.